I want to welcome the GMs and the wives, the godly men and the warm, inviting, feminine, empathetic women out there. Now, in today's video topic, I want to discuss how healthy women do not necessarily receive the most attention from the men out there. And the reason being is because they do not need to have the projection of I need attention energy, okay? They don't have that kind of attention to where they need attention rather on themselves. They don't need that from all of the men. They're satisfied with the one man that they're in a relationship with, their significant other, and their family or close friends or whatever. And even their close friends do not necessarily need to be men in general. You know, these are the women in her life. A decent woman overall, the most important quality that any healthy woman is going to have is openness. She's completely open with you and she's honest. I wouldn't necessarily say like a glass house necessarily, but she doesn't have anything to hide. And so she's transparent with you. She's open in her communication. And this is actually someone that you can work with, even if she hasn't had, let's say, the most great past. Because there is a possibility that this wife, this warm, inviting, feminine, empathetic woman, has put in a lot of inner work on herself. And it's possible that through specific kinds of therapeutic practices or just being more in tune with who she is, she's not crazed off of the attention from all of these different kinds of men that makes her head scramble, because women do feel and then they think, and then men think and then they feel. And so a mature woman understands that it's actually in her best interest to support the one man in her life that she deems to be the most valuable, which is the significant other, her romantic partner, right? So, and I don't really like the term partner either. I want to get this out of our subconscious mind and out of this framework that we're working with in our society. And I want to be able to communicate about these kinds of ideas and topics with a sense of ambiguity, because a lot of people make judgments without really thinking about what I'm saying or what other people are saying. But I want people to understand that, specifically the women in this case, is that you do not need to keep soul killers in your life. And how do you spot a soul killer compared to a man that is dominant? Like, what's the difference? Well, the man that is dominant is going to be able to give you freedom. But it's not freedom to do whatever you want. It's freedom with responsibility. That's the difference. The man that is just trying to control you, that is just trying to dictate your life, that is a soul killer, he is going to try to take your soul. And in a way that degrades you, demoralizes you, and dehumanizes you. A man that is, let's say, the godly man, okay? A godly man that is dominant, he's not going to put you down simply because of the hierarchy in which man is made in the image of God. According to the Corinthians, the Most High is at the top, then Christ is the head of man, man's the head of the woman, and the woman is the head of the children. The reason that it is this way is because ultimately it's very vital for a woman to be in submission to the man's mission if they're going to have a proper relationship. This is one of the reasons why I do not advocate for the happy wife, happy life. Because anytime a man puts a woman on a pedestal, whether in his mind or actually in reality, he, over time, castrates himself spiritually. And women, you must understand that you trying to control a man and you trying to lead him in a way that he doesn't want to be led, you're trying to castrate him spiritually. You may not think that that's what you're doing, and you may not even understand it yourself, because this is your biological imperative in many ways, shapes, and forms. But in order for you to actually be in submission to the mission, it's not necessarily about letting him lead, right? You don't want to let him lead. You want him to actually lead you. So it's not necessarily about letting him lead. It's about choosing to follow him. That's the difference. And so a mature woman does not get upset when the man is leading her, even in a way that maybe she doesn't want to be led. For example, let's say you, as a woman, you want to get a dog in the house, and your husband he says no, he doesn't want the dog, and you get upset, but you respect his decision to not get the dog. You may ask why. And to be honest, if you're asking why, and if you ask like a lot of probing questions on why not, you're probably not as submissive or feminine as you think. It's not that you shouldn't ask, or that you are like incapable of being able to ask these kinds of questions about, well, why not get a dog? Well, because there's probably some kind of financial situation. Like, let's say you're in a situation where you're striving to have, like in your family, in your household, you want to have family legacy greater than family leisure. At this moment in time, the man may understand that the financial situation, or just the overall the trajectory of the relationship and the household itself, is not quite ready for the dog yet. Maybe it's time to have kids before a dog, or vice versa. I don't know. Whatever the case may be, the man may have a legitimate reason behind it. Maybe he just says not yet, right? This is an example of a man, a minor example, but an example nonetheless, of a man leading a household. This is what's very important as a man. To all the men that may be watching this, you have to understand that if a woman does ask you these questions, it's completely fine. But ultimately, you have to recognize that you're being questioned in your leadership, whether you like it or not. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, and I'm not saying that the woman shouldn't do that. What I'm saying is that that's something to take note of for the relationship itself. So let's say the husband says no, and the woman, she doesn't really like it, but she respects the man. She respects what he's built. She respects and understands that she's in submission to the mission, not necessarily the man. Because when she's in submission to the mission, she's ultimately in submission to God. And women, I'm not telling you that you should just be going around submitting to every man out there. Hell no. Most of the men today in our society, I will be the first one to let you know, women and ladies, like, most men are not ready for you to, like, at all. They're not ready for you. And you're not ready for them. Most of the men are not ready to lead, and most of the women are not ready to actually commit to following. This is the difference. So another thing that I want to make note of is this is one of the reasons why women will not get attention from that are healthy from men a lot of the times, because they're not trying to they're not trying to show off themselves sexually in order to get that kind of sexual attention. Because from what I can tell in my experience, and from all of the people that I've worked with in my whole career, etc., it was because I've had a lot of different kinds of experiences at my jobs in the last like 10 years. And I can tell you without a shadow of the doubt that the women that were more promiscuous, let's say, or dress more openly about themselves, they were the ones that also had the most emotional baggage, and they were the most sexually open as well. Like some of them were bisexual, some of them were like on the fence, some of them were whatever, right? They didn't really know who they were. That was the bottom line came to. And same thing goes for a lot of men out there that are not able to lead. And women, how do you spot a man that knows himself? Like, do you know the answer to this question? A man that knows himself will know where he's come from and be okay with it, understand where he's at, and be okay with a growth mindset, and have a destination in mind for where he's going. A man must be a complete package. He has to be. If he's not done the work to get to where he has, or where he is, it's going to show. And women have the feminine intuition is real, but it's not as mystical as society would like us to believe it is. And the female intuition is based off of patterns of behavior that contribute to her emotional stimuli and responses. That's what feminine intuition ultimately is. So when a man has developed his instinct, not necessarily his intuition, but his instinct, even though men and women both have instincts and intuitions, the females operate more, and women, I guess I would say rather, operate more in the intuition spectrum, whereas men operate more in the instinct spectrum. The males and the females both have these kinds of qualities about themselves. But one thing that I've also noticed is that a mature woman who doesn't need the attention of men doesn't get mad when she rejects a man and then the man moves on. I cannot tell you how many times this has happened. And even in my life, like within the last few years, women have rejected me in the past, and now they see me and now they want me. And it's like, you didn't want me, and now you do. Well, I'm sorry, but I can actually get someone better than you now. And it's not really saying that like I'm better than you, but at the same time it's like, well, why exactly, as a man who's been in the trenches for the last few years, 5 years actually, but who's been in the trenches for years, who has put in countless hours of work on himself, who has actually made something of himself, who has contributed to his physical, emotional, and spiritual life every single day, who is more mature than a lot of 60-year-old men out there, or even 90-year-old men, because I've met 90-year-old men that are still like toddlers, essentially, in their mindset. And it's like, why should a man like myself give you any kind of consideration to be taken seriously when I know for a fact who you are and what you've been about and the kind of behaviors that you've exhibited? And now that you're single and the grass isn't greener on the other side, you want to come back to me or a guy like myself. Like, why should a man like that take you seriously? And a healthy woman is not going to ever be in this situation. Do you know why? Because the healthy woman recognizes not only the potential of a man intuitively, but she can also recognize where the man actually is based off of his behavior, his tonality, the way he carries himself. Women pay way more attention to this for the guys listening out there. Women pay way more attention to this than you think. The social intelligence of most men is just, it's atrocious. And so when a man actually has social IQ, for women, that's in many ways a turn on because not very many men are like that. And so a woman is not going to get upset at a man that is capable of leading socially. He has a high social IQ, EQ, IQ, etc. Because that healthy woman understands and wants a man that is better than her. Because that way she feels more secure, she feels more safe. And if the man is able to arouse her sexually, then, like, dude, you are the complete package at that point. And a healthy woman is not going to just push that to the side. She's going to make it fairly easy. There might be some games still, because that's just the nature of the game itself. But ultimately, a good woman is not going to be, she's going to be cooperative, and she's going to not be contrite. Those would be the words that I would use. So with that being said, women, pay attention to how this man's energy makes you feel. And men, pay attention to how the women's energy makes you feel. Because if either of those people that you're dealing with make you feel bad about yourself or hate yourself, and you know that you're not that kind of person, they're trying to leech onto your energy, whether consciously or unconsciously, and you may become a target, and you may be dealing with a soul killer. So with that being said, I hope this message was useful and insightful. And until next time, peace be with you.